So they hung out together at the drugstore in the corner of our street at 147th and Purvis, and you know, as young teenagers. Well, one time my mother decided to that I was a baby. I'm 12 years younger than Marilyn, and that you didn't think I'd get it in, did you, Marilyn? And so this might be the last time. So I needed to go for a walk, so they were pushing me in the carriage, and all of a sudden, up on Purvis somewhere, they just leave me there and go over, and I don't know, Charlie was doing a Sal Mineo imitation. I don't know. I didn't think he'd hear about Sal Mineo, did you? But he was good at it. But, so anyway, the stroller rolls down into this thicket of thorns and briars, and there's malaria and everything. And, you know, Charlie and Marilyn are there, you know, making out or something. It was an experience that I'll certainly never forget. And I won't let anybody else forget it. As Marilyn and Charlie got married real young, and one day, I think I was in the summertime, Charlie worked a lot of new construction as a plumber, and so my mom gets a call from Marilyn, and the young bride was very upset, and she said, you know, I make Charlie's lunch, and I put a hard-boiled egg in it, and the thing is, he takes it and throws it up in the air and cracks it on his head. And Mom says, well, yeah, and she says, well, I think I gave him one that wasn't hard-boiled. So it turned out it wasn't hard-boiled. That's the kind of thing Charlie would do. And for those of you that watch Friends, Marilyn and Charlie, well, okay, lobsters, they mate with one lobster, and they stay together for years, and they are seen walking on the bottom of the tank together, and that's what Marilyn and Charlie are. Charlie was Marilyn's lobster. I said before that Charlie coached the kids in baseball one Sunday morning. I think it was an opener. Charlie was coaching the team and got a call from one of the other fathers, and he was upset because, well, his kid was clearly better, and Charlie was starting his kid in front of him, and he said on the phone, well, look, if you were to coach, you'd start your kid there too. You know? And there was one of the boys wasn't as gifted as the others. So there later in the day, there was Andy in right field, picking dandelions, looking for four-leaf clovers, looking around. Too many balls weren't hit out there. There was, as some of the people have already mentioned, there was two Charlie Barretts. I was pretty young, but I knew that there was one, like I say, worked, you know, the plumbers, rough group. They'd get done early in the afternoon, and Charlie go out for a beer or six. He'd stay out all night. My sister said many times she'd lay in bed crying and think about what happens if he doesn't come home. I got three young boys here, you know. And then it seemed like overnight there was a responsible Charlie, the one who cared about other people, who cared about his family. I think he always cared about his family, but Charlie prayed every morning, and those prayers were answered. He had the strength to overcome the addiction, and he was a stickler for to stay away from alcohol. One time recently, the past few years anyway, we wanted to go to this Mongolian barbecue, and it's one of these where they have the grill in front of you and they cook, chop it up and whatnot, and he was just convinced that they used some type of alcohol in it, and he wouldn't go. You know, he just wouldn't go and be exposed to that, because you know he was so stuck to it so much. Not once did he fall. He ran the Sunday meeting, which I believe was the biggest meeting, Sunday at noon at the Sahara Club gathering place for the AA, and he loved buying these prizes. There's a little display over there of some of the things, and man, I think he went to Mark's about 2 or 3 times a day. I don't know. He just loved to, you know, and there were some better than others. There was some Marks better than others. But, he gathered prizes for their raffle, which would encourage guys to come, and was very successful. The grand prize he found, the most popular prize, was always 36 count toilet paper. that was the big one. And said he had 2 careers, union plumber. And there were times I remember, even though I was little, and after that incident, I'm sorry. No, you know, working new construction, you were laid off in the winter, and Charlie would work odd jobs. I remember him setting up for different shows downtown, and the union would get him this and that. He'd do side jobs. Always made it through, you know. Always made it through till spring came. And so he had 2 careers, that of the plumber and then the building commissioner, which was real good because it kind of got him away from some things that would lead him back to his previous life. And I live in Lakewood, and I'd have numerous times I'd have a contractor over to give me estimates, and it was just kind of funny to see their reaction when I would say, "Oh, do you know Charlie Barrett? He's my brother-in-law." And yeah, they kind of changed when they said that. But he was relentless. There was a new female mayor came in and didn't like Charlie for some reason. She even instituted a position. Charlie was building commissioner at the time. Couldn't fire him above Charlie, that he would have to answer to another. It doesn't matter, but it was a woman who was not qualified. But she thought that would get Charlie out, but it didn't. He was too knowledgeable, too well liked. Even the guys he was tough on, I think, they respected him. He, besides he had the plumbing background, but I remember him going to classes for electrical certification, had to go to Columbus to be certified for that. Just the mechanical mind of this man, he could do anything in office.
Thank you, Dan. Next. Oh, you're already up.
Hi, I'm Joe. I am Charlie's oldest. He wore many hats. Literally. He wore many ties. We need to monetize the Charlie Barrett collection. He saved a lot of lives. And the first time he saved mine was when he started to save his own. When I was 11. The oldest, old enough to know what was going on, old enough to wish I didn't know what was going on, and had a particularly rough night out with him. And then the next morning, I remember my mom and he sitting on the side of the bed and telling 11-year-old me that he wasn't going to drink anymore. And I didn't know what else was involved there, but I knew that was pretty big. And I can honestly say that was the happiest day of my life up to that point. And he didn't. Not that day, not the next day, not the 18,000 odd other days in the rest of his life. And when you look at it now, and you all know the person he became, it seems inevitable. It seems like, of course, it happened that way. But that's 18,000 decisions made every day. And something like that has the force of nature. I mean, that's how you create mountains. You keep making that decision over and over and over. And it took me a hell of a long time to accept that as one of my gifts, because in my stupid, angry 20s, he was stubborn. But what I found out about me is that I might not be the smartest guy in the world, but I can keep making the same decision over and over and over. And you can make up for an awful lot that way. The second time he saved my life was actually something he didn't give me. I was having money problems. Nothing new for me, kind of a pattern at that point. And I asked him and Mom to lend me some money. I'm gonna put lend in quotes there. And they thought about it for a few days, and I was already living in Portland at that point, and called me up and said no, and explained why. And I only kind of half understood really why, but somehow magically, I don't know, whatever you call your higher power there, things fell into place and I started to get my shit together. And things just changed. And it wasn't until years later I realized he sponsored me. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he, those of you he sponsored and those of you who knew him, he loved you the same way he loved me. I don't know which came first, but I am indebted to him for the education I got from him, from the man that he was, just knowing him, and finally accepting and embracing the gifts that he gave me. Also for the education that he paid for, because we were not flush with money, and it was expensive to go to Catholic high school. But he made it work, somehow. Did a lot of juggling of the financial balls on the phone with the bursar at St. Ed's. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be the only one who says this today, but thanks, Dad. Thanks for saving my life.
Next, we'd like to hear from Mike C.
Oh, thank you. Just shut up. Just shut up. That's what we heard many days, many times, over and over at the meetings. Someone taught him that. Shut up, Charlie. Shut up and go do what you gotta do, but don't do anything about it, just shut up. With that, excuse me, I forgot my notes. Doesn't mean I still can't act a fool. An unkind word unspoken. Over and over and over, he would say that. And then finally one day it sinks in. Sinks in. Last week, when I heard he passed away, my son saw the look on my face. What's wrong? I told him, Charlie passed away. And then I said, wow, he helped a lot of people.
Amen.
And Zachary, my son, said, he helped me. I looked at him, what? What you helped him? He said, he helped you, he helped me. That's how many lives he touched. How many lives he changed. How many lives he saved. Because he saved mine as well. He started that meeting on Sunday, Book Park Sunday noon, 1982, 83, something like that. He was one of the founders. And that was my home group. But it took a while to get there. Finally, one day you must have saw me have the same anger issues that I had. Because I walk in looking pissed off all the time anyhow. And he knew it. Come here, sit back here. I said, no, I'm good. Sit back here. I don't know why. I don't know why he chose me. There's plenty of other idiots or somebody said. This idiot. Okay. And that's where it all started. I couldn't wait for that meeting to end. Because that's when our meeting started. We'd hang out for an hour and a half, and just talk. The stories that were over and over, heard it many times. It would start, let me tell you something. Okay, here comes another one. He'd tell the story. And then sometimes he'd do what they do in test, where it's said one way, couple down, different question, said the same way, said different way, same question. Okay, he'd do that, he'd throw that out there, and I'm like, hey, did I ever tell you about it? No. And he'd get in, here's the same story. All his stories had a lesson to them, had a learning to them. He was teaching you something, teaching me. He talked me down for making so many mistakes. I don't know, driving out to Lorraine, beat my son's mom's, one of her boys' school boyfriends, lawyer, you know, as they think. He kept talking me down from that many nights, many times. He could say things sarcastically. That's what made him funny. I got that. I'm that idiot. I got that. He was creative, especially on a Sunday noon meeting with his poems. He had a different poem every week. People would go there just to hear the poem. But I know he wasn't all by himself on those poems. Beautiful woman Marilyn up here, she was the help behind all that. She helped him create those poems. She was the creator. His poems rhymed, his poems went with the gifts that he had up there, the prizes. And there were always 6 prizes. Always 6 prizes. I was the one that had to tell people there was 6 prizes. But it was worth it. It was a good meeting to go to because he was there. Like somebody said it, the presence that he had just being there. Sometimes it was just the presence on his voice, on the phone. It went so far. A few months back, a friend of mine called me from Colorado, Scott. Scott and I worked together at Carrabba's. Scott was in trouble. Scott was going to lose his job. A friend of mine who knew I was in the program turned around and said, "You got to help Scott." I said, "No, I don't. No, I don't need to help Scott. Scott's going to lose his job because Scott's going to lose his job." I didn't tell him to drink behind the bar. I didn't tell him to go do that. "No, you got to help Scott." Best thing she ever did. We don't like being told what to do. Don't tell me what I got to do. But I did. But I didn't do it on my own. I called Charlie first. And I said, "Charlie, where do I take a guy in Lakewood to a meeting?" He goes, "You got to pick him up?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to pick him up right now." He goes, "Meet me here." I said, "Okay." I picked the guy up and we met him there. Charlie was a giver. Charlie went out and bought books. Charlie went out and bought pamphlets. Charlie went out and did a lot of things so he can give them away. He gave that guy a book outside back of his trunk. Pass it out. Pass it out. Right out of the back of his trunk. We took that guy to a meeting. It ended up being a doubleheader. There was 2 meetings that night. And we talked hours. Charlie shared a lot of things with him. To this day, that guy's sober. Moved to Colorado 9 years later, sober. And I still read Charlie's books. You tell him thank you for them books. That's how much he touched all these people. And how he learned to give it away. You know, he taught me the forgiveness by sharing with his stories. Like I said, he had a way of doing his stories over and over so you get it. He explained to me how you're at a meeting and you listen to this guy, and I'm thinking to myself, Charlie says, "What a crumb." You know, everybody else calls him a piece of this, a piece of that, or whatever. Charlie uses the word crumb. I've never heard that. That is just awesome. Crumb. You're a crumb. And I went, "Oh my God." And Charlie goes, "Huh, then I thought about that. I did the same stuff." That was teaching me to look at myself. Then he was teaching me, I gotta work on this, I gotta work on this. And to forgive yourself. Charlie taught me a lot about forgiveness. And you gotta do it with yourself, and that's what he taught me. I learned that. You know, we used to go to, he opened my world up to think different than what I was when I first came into that program. Because I didn't know how to think. He taught me how to think. And he was my sponsor. I never asked him to be. Most times you ask him, I never asked him. He just ended up being my sponsor. That's how it works. And he was awesome at it. He took the time. We used to go to these car shows at the IX Center. Walk around all day. Look at cars, talking, joking. And it wasn't just about AA. It's about cars he had, cars I had, just things in general. Always fun. And I'd say, "Charlie, you want to stop and get something to eat?" "Nah, I don't want to eat this garbage." "We'll eat later." You can take me to Carruthers, I'll let you treat. Okay. And it was worth it. It was worth it. It was good. He was very proud of you children, his kids, each and every single one of you. He talked about you endlessly. When I hear about those stories over and over, it was like, cool, good. How successful you guys are and how hard you guys work. He's very proud. Very proud. Proud of the grandkids too. I'm not sure where they're at, but okay. And he loved when you guys came to town and played nothing but games. Loved him. It was a good thing. I'm proud to be his friend for 20 years. Proud to have him in my life. Proud to have everybody around him in my life. My mother never loved him, never knew him, but she loved him. For what he did. The way he was. And how many lives he touched. Doesn't get any better than that. That's what he would say. This is great stuff. And what everybody said is great stuff. That was one of his words too. As well as it's great to be sober. Thank you for taking the time, Chuck.
I'd like to ask Al to come up.
I think it took multiple Ed guys to pick on the Ignatius guy, huh?
Oh,
Don't worry, I'm used to it.
I left word at the door. I'm surprised you got in.
I had the coffee. Only reason. You know, I gotta meet Charlie. I came back in February 2002 from overseas, and I was still driving. I was still healthy enough to drive, and he was still working at the building. So I got to see him on some of the Sunday meetings. It wasn't my steady meeting, but when he was off on the Monday holidays at the morning men's meeting. And but the time he retired is the time I had to stop driving, and I think he got the short end of the stick because he seemed to be the guy driving me. It was like 1 or 2 meetings a week, and then it was like 3 meetings, and then we started doing the. I think he found a partner in crime with the thrift stores and that. It was funny, I remember the one time, I love the thrift stores too. And shopping at Mark's, and the adults would look at us in the closeouts and think that we were children playing with all the stuff over there. Looking for prizes and seeing who could pick the more warped item. Yeah, I remember the one time we were out there in North Olmsted. I'm not sure it was Goodwill or Salvation, it didn't matter, and there's this big white wedding dress, I mean, so I go up to Charlie, I go, what do you think? And he, out loud, without hesitating, he goes, you think you should be wearing white? There's like 4 women there, they burst out laughing, and he knew that I threw, it was always one of them was throwing out there, and they know when the other one would hit it out of the ballpark. And we had a lot of fun, and you know, Charlie had a serious side too. You know, I remember, don't ask Charlie a question if you want the right answer, because I meet this young lady, Janet, it's 10, 11 years ago, and I decided maybe, you know, she never was married before. I said maybe we should, you know, have a ceremony, you know, we were together for a while. So, and I go to the guy who's been married for a while. Makes sense, right? And he goes up, I go, you know, what's a successful, you know, your success in marriage? He goes, she's right, you're wrong, shut up. You get 1 battle a year, don't use it. And I looked at him and I said, I should have asked the dozen of guys who've been married 5 times in AA. You know, and he just chuckled, but he was right. And, you know, he didn't, a few months after that, you know, the serious side came out. You know, he gets a call and said, I'm in Fairview, me and her mom rushed her to the hospital. She's bleeding inside. She had cancer. And Charlie goes up. He goes, you want me to come over? He goes, I'm with the mother right now. I'll see. Let's see if they're gonna keep her in. And they let her. And he was there. Charlie was always there, and he didn't come up with these great. He was just there all the time. She a couple of more cancer and depression, and she ends up dying. 3 years later, and I don't break down really. And he happened to be at my house, and I'm looking for something for him. And it's a magazine or something, I don't remember what it was. And I run into the first birthday card this girl gives me, and I fall down. Now first Charlie, I have health issues, and he thinks it's a health problem, so he saw the birthday card. He puts his arm on my shoulder, and that's it. He said, I'm here. That's all he had to say. I wasn't one that when things go, I hated when someone said God's will. I believed it, but I didn't want to hear it then. Did not want to hear it then. And Charlie, so what happened? A few years later, I meet this other young lady, and I'm telling Charlie, I said, she's a school teacher at St. Peter's up there in North Ridgeville. Happened to be my grandson and my granddaughter's. They had her for first grade, and she became friends with my daughter-in-law. And I'm telling her, I said, we're going to have a ceremony at St. Peter's. Now he looks confused because, see guys, I'm Muslim. And I go up, I goes, yeah, but remember, I went to St. Pat's. I had to have water thrown on me. I was baptized. They were okay with it. And their friend, they liked me out there, and they didn't care, And he goes, you're not going to ask me that question again? I go, no. I didn't like the first answer. And we laughed. And we had a lot of time like that. When Marilyn called me, said he was in the hospital first, and then that last Saturday, Charlie, it's funny, making some of the phone calls, and I get irritated real quick. I'm surprised a lot of guys may surprise him there, but and I'm irritated, so I'm going to make a phone call, and I automatically went to Charlie's house. I didn't call it, but it was an automatic thing. I didn't know Charlie in the beginning of the day. Like I said, I met him in 2002. All I know is that Charlie, all these stories you told, sons, I knew these stories. Like Mike said, he told us them. And he was proud of you guys. He was so proud. I'll tell us the story. I remember when you were going to name Charlie, he cried at me. He was so proud and touched by that. And I'm not ashamed to say that. And Charlie, we knew so much. I knew all you guys before I ever met you. It was nice talking to Pat on the phone because I already knew a lot. And when he told me, he had to tell me about Die Hard, the musical. Because he said, me and you have the same warped sense of humor. And I dug it up, and he asked me how I got it, and he remembered, I have a little issue with